The night my twins, Noah and Nia, cried themselves to sleep on Christmas Eve, their hearts breaking from the emptiness I couldn't fill, there was a knock at the door, 3 heavy thuds that echoed like a drumbeat. Louder than my guilt, louder than their pain. My name is Bella Jackson. I've spent the last 6 years juggling 2 jobs, raising my twins on my own in a run-down Chicago apartment. I've watched their laughter turn to disappointment too many times, but tonight was the worst. The Christmas tree, if you could call it that, was a sad, crooked thing strung with half-dead lights, and under it, nothing. Not even a dollar-store toy. They didn't deserve this, and yet I couldn't fix it. But when that knock came, I had no idea it would change everything. No idea that the man who knocked would not only resurrect my hope, but bring everything I had been running from crashing back into my life. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace we're getting everything back on track. Thank you for sticking with me. Your support means everything. Before we begin, I want to say a little prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your heart with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and give you wisdom in all you do. And may God's protection rest on every single one of you. Amen. If you're ready for today's story, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from my USA and UK family. I see you. And please watch till the end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into the story. Before the knock, there were years of sacrifice, loneliness, and broken dreams. Dreams I had let go of long ago. And yet, there he was. William Morrison, a billionaire now, but to me, he was still the boy I loved once upon a time. The world seemed to hold its breath as I stared at him in disbelief, still standing at the threshold of my apartment. His expensive suit, perfectly tailored, was a sharp contrast to the peeling wallpaper and the faded carpet beneath his polished shoes. The smell of stale pizza and broken promises hung heavy in the air, but he didn't seem to notice. He only stared at me, his eyes unreadable, almost like he was searching for something I had no idea how to give. Bella. His voice was soft, like he wasn't sure what to say next. His jaw tightened as he glanced around the room, as if the sight of my worn-out apartment was too much for him to fully process. I could almost see him calculating the vast difference between his world and mine. It was there in the slight shift of his posture, in the way his gaze flicked over the mess of toys and clutter scattered across the floor, my kids' chaos that had long since become my life. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The man who had promised me forever, who once held me in his arms like I was the only thing that mattered, had walked away without a word. Now he stood in front of me, looking like something out of a dream I had long stopped believing in. How could you not know about them? My mind screamed. Asterisk. How could you not know about Noah and Nia? Asterisk. I bit down on the anger rising in my chest, but it wasn't enough to stop the bitterness from creeping into my voice. You came here to tell me what exactly, William? To tell me how sorry you are? To tell me you didn't forget about us? His face tightened at the words, but he didn't retreat. He stood there, tall and imposing, like a stranger who just happened to look a lot like the boy I once loved, a boy who had promised me that distance wouldn't change us, that love was stronger than anything life could throw at us. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It couldn't be, but it was. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sounds of the city outside, the distant hum of traffic, the soft murmur of people seemed muffled as I stood frozen, caught between my anger and the strange, unspoken pull I still felt toward him. I hadn't seen William in over 6 years, not since he left for Princeton. And yet, standing there in front of me, it felt like no time had passed at all. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to throw everything I could at him, the years of pain, the loneliness, the nights I spent wondering if he even thought about me, the nights I cried into my pillow, trying to figure out how I was going to survive, how I was going to raise Noah and Nia without the one person who should have been there with me. But there was something else there too, a flicker of something I didn't want to face, something I thought I'd buried deep down. The way my heart still recognized his presence, even after all these years. The way I could still smell his cologne in the air, still see the crooked smile that had always made my knees weak. Damn it. Why did he have to come back? He shifted his weight slightly, uncomfortable under my gaze. I noticed how his eyes moved from the chaos of the apartment to the kids' rooms down the hall, where Noah and Nia were sleeping, blissfully unaware of the man who had been absent from their lives since before they were born. His expression softened, and his lips parted, like he was going to say something, but then he stopped himself. He took a deep breath. I've been looking for you, Bella, for a while now. I know I should have reached out sooner. The words felt hollow, like he was reading from a script someone else had written for him. The sincerity behind them was hard to read, almost impossible to believe. Looking for me? I wanted to laugh, but the bitter taste in my mouth made that impossible. If he was really looking for me, how could he have not known about the kids? I crossed my arms, trying to keep myself steady. My hands trembled, and I fought the urge to run away from the confrontation, anything to escape the old, painful feelings that this man had the power to bring back to life. What do you want from me, William? My voice was quieter now, betraying the exhaustion I felt, the years of silent suffering. Do you think you can just waltz in here, with all your money and your fancy title, and make everything better? His eyes hardened. But there was no arrogance there, just the weariness of someone who had lived too long in a world that demanded more of him than he was capable of giving. He shook his head, his jaw tightening again as he looked down at the floor, then back at me. I don't want to make it better. I know I can't. But I owe you more than what I left behind, Bella. I owe you the truth. The truth. It was a word I had used in my head 1,000 times, but hearing it from him felt like a slap in the face. I wanted to tell him that I didn't need his truth, that his apologies wouldn't fix anything. But somewhere deep down, I knew I was lying. I needed answers. I had needed them for years, and now, here he was, standing in front of me. I never knew, he said quietly, his voice thick with regret. I never knew about the twins. I didn't know you were pregnant. I left. I didn't think about what I was leaving behind, and I hate myself for it, Bella. I do. I closed my eyes briefly, the weight of his words settling over me like a fog I couldn't shake. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was tight, my emotions tangled in a mess of anger and hurt that I didn't know how to untangle. What do you want, William? I repeated, more softly this time, the bitterness still there, but now mingled with something else, something I didn't want to feel. He took a step closer, then another, until he was standing right in front of me. His eyes held mine, searching for something, hope, maybe, forgiveness. I didn't know, but I couldn't look away. I want to make things right, he said, his voice low but steady. I've been trying to find a way to fix what I broke, Bella. I know I can't make it all go away, but I want to help. I want to be there for you and the kids. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him, but a larger part of me couldn't shake the feeling that he was offering a quick fix, something that wouldn't be enough to undo the years of loneliness, the years of disappointment. But still, I couldn't push him away. Not yet. Not when the chance to fix this, to fix us, was hanging in the air between us, thick and charged. Why now, William? I whispered, the question escaping before I could stop it. Why after all these years? Why now? His eyes darkened, and for a moment I saw the man who had once held me close, the man who had once promised we would be together no matter what. He was still there, somewhere. I don't know, Bella, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken promises. I wasn't sure I could believe him, but maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something that would change everything. William's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating the small space between us. I know about Noah and Nia, Bella. I've known for a while. My stomach churned. It felt like he had thrown a stone into calm water, and now the ripples were crashing through everything I'd built, everything I had fought so hard to keep together. He knew, but never reached out, not even once. You knew? I could barely get the words out, my voice trembling despite myself. And you just... I swallowed hard. choking on the bitterness that surged up in my throat. You just let us live like this. Alone. Struggling. For years. William didn't flinch. His gaze softened with regret, but it didn't take away the anger burning in my chest. I know, Bella. I didn't make the right choices, and it haunts me. My success. It didn't protect me from that guilt. Success. That word cut through me like a knife. His billion-dollar empire, the lavish life he'd built, none of that could fix what mattered. His absence. My loneliness. The nights I spent making sure the kids had enough to eat, even if it meant skipping meals myself. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he stepped back into my life. The man who had walked away from everything we'd talked about. The man who had chased his dreams while I stayed behind, trying to raise children without him. I wasn't sure I could ever forgive him. Could I? After everything? Why now? The words came out sharper than I intended. Why are you here, William, after all this time? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, as if searching for the right words. I've been trying to find you for years, Bella. I thought about you, about Noah and Nia all the time, but it was hard. I was ashamed. I didn't know how to make it right. Ashamed. The word stung. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers for the years I spent feeling abandoned, but I couldn't. Instead, I was quiet, trying to hold it together. A flash of memory hit me like a wave one night. Months after he left for Princeton, I had stood in the bathroom, staring at the test in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. It was impossible, I had thought. How could I raise a baby alone? Especially after everything we'd talked about. I wasn't ready to burden him, not when he had his whole life ahead of him. So, I kept the secret. I'd tell myself I was protecting him. But now, sitting here in front of him, I wasn't so sure. I never told you, I whispered, almost to myself. I couldn't. William took a step closer, but I stepped back, the distance between us growing despite the closeness of his words. Bella, I wish you had. I wish you had trusted me. I shook my head, wiping away a tear that escaped before I could stop it. I couldn't trust you, I said softly. Not when you left. Not when I had to build everything without you. A long silence followed before William spoke again. I want to help, Bella. Anything. I can provide for you and the kids. Help you get back on your feet. I know I can never fix everything, but I want to try. My heart pounded in my chest. He was offering everything, money, support, the life I had dreamt of for so long. But could I accept it? Could I really accept help from the man who had abandoned me, who had left me to struggle for years? No, I couldn't. Thanks, but no, I said, my voice shaking with the sting of pride. I don't need your charity. I don't need you to fix things. William's eyes softened, but the determination in his expression didn't falter. He took a step back, as if respecting my words, but unwilling to give up on his offer. I'm not asking you to take charity, Bella. I'm asking to be part of your life again. And that was the hardest part, because a part of me wanted to say yes. I wanted to let him back in, to believe in the fairy tale we had once dreamed of. But another part of me knew better. I didn't need him to save me. I had spent too many years learning how to save myself. William's words echoed in my mind as he sat across from me, his eyes steady, filled with something that might have been sincerity, or was it just a sense of duty? I can pay off the debts, Bella. Help you get back on your feet. I want to give Noah and Nia a Christmas they'll never forget. No child should wake up like they did last night. A Christmas they'll never forget. His words almost broke me. My children deserved so much more than I could give them. They deserved joy, laughter, and the chance to believe in the magic of the holidays. I could feel the weight of my decision pulling at me. My pride, my need to protect them from a life of handouts, warred with the vision of my children waking up to presents, real presents under a real tree. For a moment, the dream seemed so close, I could almost reach out and touch it. But it wasn't just about the presents, was it? No, it never had been. I watched William carefully as he spoke, his rich voice filled with promises and possibilities. His wealth, his success, it was a world I couldn't even begin to imagine, a world of power and influence. a world so far removed from the cramped apartment I called home. I couldn't deny that the offer tempted me. The idea of not having to worry about where the next meal would come from or whether the gas would be shut off was something I had long since given up on. The thought of not struggling just to stay afloat felt like an impossible luxury. And maybe that's what made it so dangerous. I knew, deep down, that accepting his help would come at a cost. Nothing this good ever came without strings attached. You don't get it, do you? My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't hold back the frustration. I've been doing this on my own for 6 years, William. 6 years. I don't want charity. I don't want to owe anyone anything, especially not you. He seemed to shrink under my words, though he quickly masked it with a calm demeanor. It's not charity, Bella. It's a transaction, William. And I'm not some person to be fixed, to be saved. I'm not your project. His jaw tightened, and for a brief second I saw the old William, the boy who wanted to save me from everything. But that was years ago, and the man in front of me was a stranger, a man who spoke in cold, calculated terms I didn't recognize. I stood up, the tension in the room tightening like a noose around my throat. I needed space, needed to breathe. But as I reached for the door, the phone rang, cutting through the silence. William's hand hesitated for a moment before he picked up the call. His tone suddenly formal, distant. Yes, this is William Morrison. No, I can meet the deadline. His voice had shifted, the warmth replaced with sharp authority. I stood there, watching him, as the man I had once known became someone I didn't fully recognize. There was nothing familiar in his posture now. Nothing that reminded me of the boy who held my hand in the park and promised that we'd face the future together. This new world he lived in, I wasn't sure I could survive it. The more he spoke, the further away I felt from the person I had once loved. The person who had left me behind. The phone call ended, and he glanced at me, but the look he gave was different now. Detached, cold. I wasn't sure what was worse, the world he lived in now, or the fact that I was so tempted to step into it. Christmas morning arrived in a blur of anticipation and wonder. Noah and Nia were already awake, their tiny faces glowing in the soft morning light as they rushed to the living room. Their excitement was infectious, their little feet pattering across the floor, barely able to contain themselves. The air smelled of fresh pine from the tree, and the faint scent of cinnamon from the breakfast I'd managed to scrape together hung in the air. I stood frozen, watching them tear open the brightly wrapped presents that William had sent. Each one was more extravagant than the last new toys. Clothes, gadgets, things I could never have afforded, things I had only dreamed of giving them. Noah's eyes lit up as he unwrapped a new tablet, his fingers running over the sleek screen, while Nia squealed with delight at the dollhouse, its painted walls and miniature furniture so perfect it looked like something out of a dream. For a moment, I felt a rush of overwhelming gratitude. My children's joy was the kind of gift that money couldn't buy, the kind of happiness that filled a mother's heart to the brim. But then I looked at the pile of gifts. I couldn't help the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. William had fixed what was broken with money, but not with love. The gifts weren't just presents, they were a reminder of everything I had lost, of everything that I had tried to protect my children from. The cold reality that life sometimes makes you choose between pride and survival. I wanted to give them a Christmas they would never forget, but not like this. I wanted to teach them that Christmas wasn't about presents, it was about family, togetherness, love. But how could I explain that to them now, with their eyes wide, filled with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in years? How could I tell them that the real gift, the real miracle, was the love we shared, not the things we had? I watched them for a moment longer, as they hugged each other, thrilled with their new treasures. A small smile tugged at my lips, but the happiness felt hollow, like a scene from a life that didn't belong to me. The door to this life, this world of wealth and easy answers, was open now, and part of me wanted to step through it, to let my children have what I never could. But the other part of me, the one that had fought so hard for everything we had, recoiled at the thought of accepting help from the man who had abandoned us. I couldn't go back to the way things were before. I couldn't let myself be the kind of person who let money fix everything. I picked up my coat, the weight of my decision pressing down on me like a stone. "Come on, you two. Let's get breakfast." As we walked to the corner diner, my heart was heavy, and my mind raced. William's offer had tempted me, but I knew it would cost me something priceless, my sense of self. The life I had built on my own, without him, had made me strong. But now, everything felt like it was slipping through my fingers. It would be so easy to give in, but I wasn't sure I could live with the price of it. The gala was everything I'd imagined it to be and nothing I could have prepared for. As soon as we walked in, the room was filled with gold accents, crystal chandeliers, and the hum of expensive conversations. The clinking of champagne glasses echoed in the background, as elegantly dressed men and women moved about like dancers in a performance I wasn't sure I even belonged in. William, standing beside me, looked right at home. He was the center of it all, surrounded by people who hung on his every word, who laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and were drawn to him not for who he was, but for what he could offer. It was all so sterile. I watched him slip effortlessly into this world, his smile never quite reaching his eyes, his posture rigid with the weight of expectations. As I stood there, feeling more out of place than I'd ever felt in my life, I realized something. This life he was offering, the one where the money flowed like water, came with a cost I wasn't sure I was willing to pay. It wasn't just about the material things, it was about who you had to become to fit in. It was about sacrificing your identity, your values, everything you held dear, just to play the game. People weren't talking to William because they cared about him. They were talking to him because he had the power to help them, the money to open doors they couldn't get through on their own. His wealth was his identity, and that identity was cold and transactional. It was all about deals, appearances, and the next big opportunity. Nothing real, nothing raw. And as I watched him, his eyes scanning the room with practiced detachment, I felt a pang of something deep inside me, something I couldn't ignore. I loved him once. I wanted to believe that this world, his world, was the answer to everything I'd fought for. But as I watched him interact with these people, I realized I didn't recognize him anymore. The boy I once knew, who talked about dreams and love and the future we could build together, was gone, replaced by a man I wasn't sure I could ever trust again. I turned away, needing space, needing to breathe. My heart was pounding in my chest, the noise in the room suddenly unbearable. I thought about my children, Noah and Nia. I thought about the life I had built for them, hard, yes, but real. We didn't have the luxury of pretending things were easy. We didn't have the luxury of pretending we were part of a world that didn't care about anything except what you could give. But then I saw the faces of my children, their innocent joy at Christmas, and I couldn't help but wonder, what if this was the answer? What if this life, this world of opportunity, could give them the future I never had? But at what cost? After the gala, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something inside me that I wasn't sure how to deal with. William followed me home, his presence now more insistent than ever. We sat in the dim light of my apartment, the weight of everything between us. "Bella, I want you to come with me," he said, his voice steady but filled with something I hadn't heard before. "Start fresh. We could build something together. A life you've always wanted. A life with no more struggle, no more pain. Just us." His words hung in the air, and I could feel the heaviness of them pressing down on me. A life with him, everything I had dreamed of but never thought I could have. But the question lingered. Could I sacrifice who I was, what I had built, to live in this world? I looked at him, but the answer I was looking for wasn't in his eyes. It was inside me, and it was clouded by doubt. "I don't know if I can," I whispered. "I don't know if I can be part of this world, William. Not like this." And just like that, I knew no matter how tempting, no matter how hard it was to turn away, I couldn't lose myself to it. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The anger, the confusion, it had all built up over the past few weeks. Seeing William, hearing him talk about his world, Watching him promise me a future I couldn't quite picture for myself, it was all too much. It wasn't just the presents or the money or the lavish offers. It was everything. The way he had left, the way he'd never come back, the way he never even reached out. "Why did you leave?" I finally asked, my voice trembling with the weight of the question. "Why did you never contact me after everything we shared?" William didn't flinch, but I could see the tension in his shoulders as he exhaled slowly, like the words he had to say weren't easy to come by. "I had my reasons, Bella," he said, his voice low, careful. "My family, they had expectations for me. I was supposed to be the one who made it. I couldn't afford to stay. I couldn't risk throwing it all away." "Throwing it all away?" I echoed, disbelief cutting through me. "What about us? What about me? What about Noah and Nia?" His eyes dropped to the floor, and for a moment I saw the boy I once knew. He wasn't the confident CEO who walked into rooms filled with people like they were his kingdom. He was just William, a young man who had been torn between the world he came from and the future he wanted, a future I wasn't a part of. "I couldn't drag you into my mess, Bella," he continued, his voice tight. "I didn't know how to handle everything. I had to focus on securing my future. I was afraid. I couldn't give you what you deserved. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to shout and tell him how much it hurt to be left behind, how much it hurt to raise 2 kids alone, to struggle through every day wondering if he'd ever come back. But instead, I felt something else, something softer, empathy. I understood what he was saying, at least on some level. I could see how his family's expectations weighed on him. I could understand the fear that drove him to make those choices, but understanding didn't mean forgiveness. I crossed my arms, trying to hold myself together, trying to keep the walls from breaking down. "And now you want me to just step into your world? After everything? Just forget what happened?" William took a deep breath, stepping closer. "I'm asking you to take a chance on us, Bella, on a future together. I can give you everything you've ever dreamed of. No more struggling, no more fighting. Just us. A life built on everything we've always wanted. We can start fresh." His words hung in the air, heavy with promises, but there was something about them that felt like a gilded cage. A life of luxury, yes, but also a life where everything would come with strings attached. The more he spoke, the more I realized I would never be the same person in his world. I would never be the person I had fought so hard to become. I looked at him, searching his eyes for the man I once knew. "I don't know, William. I've built something for myself, and I'm not sure I can just leave that behind." The silence between us stretched, and for a moment it felt like everything was on the verge of unraveling. But then William took a step back, his shoulders sagging with the weight of his own disappointment. "I'm leaving for a business trip tomorrow," he said quietly, "but when I get back, we need to talk. Really talk." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I was ready for that conversation. The decision wasn't easy, but I could already feel the pull toward him, toward the life he was offering, toward the life I knew I might lose if I didn't choose carefully. And so, as he left, I sat alone in the quiet apartment, the weight of his proposition pressing down on me. What was I supposed to do now? The days after William left for his business trip felt like a blur. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't stop thinking about the decision that loomed over me like a heavy shadow. William had made it clear. A life of comfort, luxury, security, a future where I never had to worry about bills again, where my children could have everything they'd ever wanted. It was a life that seemed impossible to resist, one where the weight of the world wouldn't constantly press down on my chest. But there was a cost. Could I really live in that world without losing myself? Could I let go of the life I had built, the pride I had fought so hard to keep, the dignity that came from doing it on my own? My independence has always been my shield, my sense of self. How could I just give that up for a life that in many ways felt like a trade? I kept imagining the life William offered, the dinners in grand ballrooms, the vacations in places I could only dream of, the future that would be free of struggle, and yet the thought of all those things made me feel sick. Was I really willing to let him buy my happiness? To let him buy my children's future? I walked through the apartment that had once felt like a prison, now filled with a strange, hollow silence. I saw their drawings on the fridge, their shoes lined up neatly by the door, the couch where they'd always curl up with me on the weekends. This was my life, the one I had created for them. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real, and it was ours. William returned a few days later, his suit sharp, his demeanor colder than before. He knew what I had to do. We both did. We sat in the living room, the tension thick between us. He looked at me with that familiar sadness, the one that mirrored the loss in my own chest. He had made his offer, and I had to make my choice. "I can't do it," I whispered, my voice breaking despite my best effort to stay calm. "I can't give up who I am, William. I can't let you buy our future." His face fell, and for a moment it felt like I was watching the man I once loved slip away for good. There was no anger, no blame in his eyes, just the quiet acceptance that I had made my decision, and I knew it had shattered him. It shattered me too, but I couldn't change what I felt. I thought you'd come with me," he said, his voice soft, barely above a whisper. "I thought we could build something better, together." "I love you," I said, tears welling up. "But I can't trade my dignity for security. I can't let go of everything I've worked for." William stood, the weight of the moment pressing down on both of us. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt like a door closing on a part of me I didn't know I'd lose. I watched him go, feeling the love I'd let go of with every inch he moved away from me. The choice was mine, and it hurts. But it was the right one. The door closed behind him, and I was left standing in the silence. I had made my choice. The weight of it lingered, but the decision was final. I had chosen my freedom, my pride, my family, and somehow that made it hurt just a little bit less. The apartment was quiet now, the soft hum of the city just a distant murmur outside. I sat on the couch, Noah and Mia nestled in my arms, their small breaths warm and steady against my chest. Christmas had come and gone, and though it hadn't been the picture-perfect holiday I had imagined, it had been ours, and that was enough. Their laughter still echoed in my mind as I looked around the room. The tree, slightly crooked, stood in the corner, its lights blinking like a hopeful heartbeat. The presents, some bought with the money William had sent, others with the meager savings I could scrape together, were scattered beneath it. But it wasn't the gifts that mattered. It was the look in their eyes, the joy, the peace. I pressed my lips to their heads, my heart swelling with a love I couldn't put into words, the kind of love that didn't need anything else to be whole. I had chosen this life, difficult as it was, and as hard as it had been to turn away from the world William offered. I knew I had made the right decision. I looked at the small pile of gifts under the tree, again items that had brought so much joy, but they still felt distant, like a fleeting moment that would soon fade into the background. What mattered most was the life we were building, the bond we had, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, full of challenges and doubts. The weight of my choices lingered, but it was a weight I was willing to carry. I had learned that strength wasn't about how much you could endure without breaking. It was about how much you could hold on to, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. And I had held on to my pride, my children, the love we shared. We might not have the luxury that some people had, but we had something that mattered far more. We had each other. I looked down at my twins, their faces soft in sleep, and whispered to myself, "This isn't just my story. It's everyone's story. We all fight for our families, for what's right, for the life they deserve." I smiled through the tears that welled up in my eyes. The hardest paths often lead to the greatest rewards, and as long as I had my children by my side, I knew I would never stop fighting for them, for the future, for the life we deserved. And in that moment, I knew no matter what came next, we would make it. Together. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.